everyone. And I don't know if it started. It says starting. So wait until it stops saying that. Okay, I think we're going now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Hour. And cheers. Well, you can't see it. Cheers, as usual. What I think we're going to talk about today, although I never quite know exactly where this will take me, is learned helplessness, and on the other side of that, learned optimism. And I'm working on this, and I have been working on it for a while now, honestly, about a year. I've been doing research on like burnout and stuff like that. And in my research, I want to say decided, but I don't know if decided is the right word. Um, like the best way I could conceptualize burnout as a phenomena, and that is like when at work you just can't give anymore. Like there's nothing left of you. So you go to work and you're just like demoralized and you kind of hate everything, and it, bleeds over into all these other areas of life. But there's not a good definition of burnout or the mechanism, and there's not like great ways to recover from burnout. Like I did a lit review in the Journal of Organizational and Behavior Management, which when I run my study, everything hoping that I submit it to that one. Um, and a few others, there's not a great definition, and there's not a behavioral formulation I've seen of specifically burnout aside from the formulation that I'm writing now. So my thoughts are akin to learned helplessness, right? And we all know that learned helplessness, or maybe we don't all know, learned helplessness is essentially what Skinner described as punishment on an intermittent schedule of reinforcement that is not yoked to any behavior, right? So there's no functional relation between what the organism's doing and when punishment happens, and there's no temporal relation. It's not every 30 minutes. There's not a lever to press to like get rid of the punishment. So it's not like there could be a warning stimulus, but it doesn't matter if there's a warning stimulus because there's nothing to do in between. So learned helplessness is when you have this like very variable schedule of reinforcement. And no matter what the organism does, it can't escape the punishment or punisher. And it has no idea what behavior is causing punishment. Like it can't associate anything. So it creates an organism that is stuck, right? Because if we think about B.F. Skinner and punishment, and I'm not sure like how many of us remember this or ever learned this in graduate school in the first place. But when you punish a bit, like there's no such thing as suppressing a behavior. It's a thing you cannot do. So when a response is punished, the organism goes and does something else instead. And those were, according to my memory, which is great for a lot of things, but for like specific quotations, maybe not the best, but it's almost word for word for something Skinner wrote. I don't remember where it was from. Probably Science and Human Behavior, I think, had the punishment section that I'm thinking of. But I can find it if any of you are like dying to know. But anyway, when you punish an organism, it doesn't suppress a behavior because there's no behavior in your head or body somewhere that's like waiting to be like, haha, like jump out. It's not like a jack in the box. That's not how we work. Behavior, it's its own phenomena. And, it's more like the way Skinner described it in an old-fashioned light bulb, like a non-energy efficient one that had the filaments. So the kind of light bulb where if you shake it and you hear something, that means the light bulb doesn't work anymore because the filament died, right? He described it to think of it as like a filament, which is the little thingy between the sticks on a light bulb. And that light doesn't like jump out from inside the filaments. It's not like hiding in there kind of like purely as it was in the first place and then it just like appears. It wasn't in the form of light when it was in the filament. It wasn't in the filament. A thing happened and then a phenomena of light happened because of chemical changes in the filament. But things change to create a new thing. It's not that the light in the room was hiding inside of it, right? So behavior is the same way. A set of circumstances and under which a behavior will occur like cohere around each other, and that produces an environment for the behavior to happen. So if you punish it, it's not you're not squishing it back down to hide it in a box for later, because there's no box to hide it in. So the organism isn't just not doing stuff. It's not like, oh, I was going to punch someone, but then I got punished, so now I'm just not doing any of that. The organism, and we know this when we've seen punishment, this is why we get side effects, right? This is side effects of punishment. The organism goes and does something else instead. So that's a very brief kind of explanation of learned helplessness behavior analytically, but like to start a kind of sort of getting into it. So what happens in learned helplessness when you do it on purpose is terrible, right? Because the organism learns that no matter what it tries to do instead of whatever it had most recently done when there was a punishment delivered or whatnot, it can't figure out what thing it should be doing to avoid punishment, and it's also in punishment avoidance mode. And when you think in organizational behavior management terms, that is management via negative reinforcement, right? Like people are doing the bare minimum to just avoid punishment. But there were dogs in the study. The dogs weren't even doing the bare minimum to avoid punishment. They were like afraid to do anything or move, right? So at the end of the study, when they opened the door, like one dog left and three were afraid to even leave their kennel because they didn't know if that would cause punishment. So like think about like just how pervasive that is, right? Something that's generalized across like a lot of response classes, because you're trying kind of everything through an extinction burst. You're getting like new behavior, kind of variable, strange behaviors, and these all happen in burnout. So like at work, if you are getting punished, and it's important to you, and you had like a good solid learning history of reinforcement, and you're like, I know I can do this, and you keep trying and you keep trying, and no matter what you do, you get punished, or you sense it as punishment, right? You don't have success, you don't contact reinforcement. That is burnout. And after a long time, that's how we become burnt out. And that is a state of learned helplessness, in my opinion, and from the research that I'm doing. And I'm trying to create a treatment paradigm to kind of assist with this, right? And to make a recovery plan from burnout. Because if you talk to any industrial and organizational psychologist, and I have more than most experience in organizational behavior management, like doing consults and with the literature and stuff, there's not a good fix for burnout. Like the job advice you give once someone is like really and truly burnt out from their job is to get another job. Like that's how hard it is to recover. But I personally feel like, and it could just be me, but I really don't think it's just me. There's like an existential level burnout happening among people from the pandemic. And there was just punishment everywhere. And legitimately, you didn't know what like responses of yours could result in like maybe getting sick, and worrying about getting sick and having that anxiety is a pretty punishing response also. So we've gone through 4 years now of intermittent punishment, and there's been some reinforcement, but like our reinforcers that we were promised turned out to be like not perfect, which we can't complain about, but it causes issues with learning history. So, sorry, it's not happy hour without a sip. So, yes. It's really, really hard to put this stuff back together, and we've had like a lot of cumulative and variable schedule punishers and reinforcers. When we finally got a reinforcer and we got the vaccine, they were very measured, saying like it may not protect you entirely, which was correct of them to say. It was true, right? But if you're waiting years and years to like not have to worry and not have to be afraid of anymore, and you're like optimistic, and then that gets punished because you're like, okay, it's a lot better, but I'm not actually a whole lot safer, that's scary too, and that's pretty severe punishment. So we had issues with jobs. People lost jobs. People were afraid to go to work. People had to keep going to work even if they were terrified and had no choice. if you weren't afraid of getting sick or dying, like likely you knew people that you were very concerned about. So I think we have this like group existential burnout that's happened. And I'm trying to think of ways to help people, myself included, because, it's not been an easy time, recover from this and recover from learned helplessness. So I'm drawing on Siegelman's research on learned optimism because he conducted the studies on learned helplessness initially with the dogs, which I have to say, he writes a lot in his book. I think it's called Learned Optimism. Give me a second. I have it right here. I was just reading it. All right. Hang on one second. Let me bookmark where I was. Yeah, Learned Optimism by Martin Siegelman. And this is the same psychologist that discovered learned helplessness. So I've been reading that to try to draw like ideas and translate the domains that they found to assist with learned optimism or learned helplessness into more behavior analytic language. And they're looking at generalization. They don't call it generalization, but it's like if you have a pessimistic attitude, are you generalizing it inappropriately? So just like we get inappropriate generalization with like toilet training with kids on the spectrum or adults on the spectrum, where if like the flush button is in, a different place, it may not generalize, it doesn't work. You sometimes get overgeneralization, and that's as much of a problem, right? So like I can leave the door open wherever I go to the bathroom, and then you might be on a sex offender registry if you leave the door open to the bathroom in like Macy's or something. So they're looking at overgeneralization problems related to the sense of self and to why good things happen and why bad things happen and how many things are going to be affected by the bad things and the good things. So if you think that like, if I do something good, oh, it was a stroke of luck, I got lucky that day, it had nothing to do with me, that's not so good for optimism is what they found. But if you find that like you don't necessarily blame yourself for every failure, that's actually a good thing for optimism. So I'm trying to figure out how these reinforcements are kind of functioning, and it's really, really interesting. There was a group, 1 in 4, that could be wrong, I just read it, of dogs, like very reliably, and humans when they first moved the studies over, that never got learned helplessness. They were always trying to escape, no matter how pervasive the punishment was, how long it went on, they never gave up. And there was 1 in 10, I know that number, of animals, and they didn't do that one in humans, or I haven't read a study with that in humans yet, but 1 in 10 wouldn't leave the cage. They'd be so like traumatized basically that once they were given access to reinforcement, they didn't even try to get it because they were afraid to behave, which is what Skinner said as a result of this intermittent schedule of punishment with no available means of escape or terminating punishers. So I was thinking of how we can condition generalized reinforcement in a more effective way for people, because I'm thinking it's really, really interesting and that people need this. Like, I need this. I need to figure out what's going on for myself, right? And I may as well share it with everybody else. But it is interesting because behavior analysts, when they did the first studies on learned helplessness, Siegelman in his book says, we said that his study was garbage, but he proved us wrong, and so on and so forth. I need to go back and read those criticisms from behavior analysts. I don't think he proved us wrong, and I'm not sure he understood the criticisms entirely of the experimental setup. But I do have to go back and read the original criticisms. Like, I've read what he said other people said about his paper, but I always prefer to read source material. So I want to go and find the critical papers published by behavior analysts about learned helplessness as a phenomenon to see what they said as a good jumping off point. So that was a long way to go talking about learned helplessness. I haven't decided what I'm going to do as an intervention yet. It'll probably be a CEU or workshop when I figure out how to do it. But as of right now, I'm still trying to think of like ways that we can condition reinforcement and give people wins in a generalized way, and also like which domains have been most punished during the pandemic. So it could be like a ratio strain problem from the whole pandemic, right? Like, I've worked this much and I'm not getting enough benefit, right? Like the wage I used to get paid at my job as a grocery store cashier, right, was okay, like not great, but like was fair for what I had to do at that job. But now that I'm risking my life to go work at the grocery store, like there's ratio strain there. Like that amount of pay is no longer sufficient, right? So people are like disgruntled. Like there's ratio strain, just like you can have like interval induced aggression, basically. I don't know if you guys know of that. You can induce aggression with schedules of reinforcement as well as punishment or extinction, and there's a huge number of animal studies that show it very reliably. So, yeah, these are the things that I've been thinking about and have been looking at that I'm really interested in and have been working on. So, if you have questions about them, if there's stuff that you need or, like want to be included in that, please let me know and I'll do my very best. And let's see what's been going on in the group this week. So, let me see what you guys have been talking about. So, we have someone asking for a bank full of interventions. I always have mixed feelings about that kind of question because if it's a cookbook of interventions, then you're not doing behavior analysis, right? Because everything we do is hyper individualized. On the other hand, I don't know how many asking for a break programs or asking appropriately for attention programs that I've written in my life. And some of them were similar to each other. I just always get worried about the recipe books, cookbooks, because I think what you're in danger of when you use these pre-made like templates sort of things is you may not like think about a really cool unique intervention, right? Like if you don't have to sit and be like, oh, what should this look like, and you don't have like a clear idea in your head for that specific person, if you see something you're like, oh, this will work for them, and it might not include stuff that you would have included if you did the whole thing from scratch. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not. So those things do exist, but generally I don't like them, if I'm being honest, because that is the difference from us and every other field as behavior analysts. Like CBT has handbooks of interventions and everyone does them the same way and all of that stuff. Like mental health has lots of handbooks for interventions and how to run sessions and all of that. And it's like session by session and that out. And the same for everybody. But that's not what we do, right? And if it's not individualized, then we're not being ethical. So I have huge concerns about like the intervention cookbooks because like unless you're using it for inspiration, I would avoid that. I'd say it's like a danger zone. Just save your own interventions that you've written, and eventually you have your own bank that you can like adapt to other people if you really wanted. So you don't have to write the steps out over, but like if you did, you should be revising it so much that it almost doesn't matter. All right, next one. Anyone in their 50s or 60s who just became a BCBA? I'm an RBT. I'm starting my master's in October. So I know a number of people that became BCBAs in their 50s or 60s. I don't know everyone's age that I've worked with, honestly, but I know there's at least a few. And yeah, those people that I know that, got their certification in their 50s or 60s, like, loved it, had no issues, and had a great time. So go for it is what I'd say. There's no reason to be concerned about that. All right, Gestalt language processor learner. What is this? I keep hearing about this. I don't know why that matters if you're a behavior analyst for Gestalt language processing. What are we talking about? We don't discuss language processing. I guess I need to look up what that is, but this as a question doesn't make sense. All right. Let me look up Gestalt language processor learner, because even learning styles as a construct have been debunked. So instead of learning the word meaning of one word at a time, some children memorize whole phrases. Oh, okay, so they script phrases. That's fine. I don't know why we need a word for that. That sounds very mentalistic to me and like kind of terrifying as like explanatory fictions lay this way, but okay. So for example, let's go to zoo. We'll want you others to repeat, so he wants you to echo it. If someone doesn't, he'll try to, oh, I've seen this before. I've had people do this with all kinds of things, light switches, words. often it was about control issues and finding them something that they could control and had very little to do with their language skills. But yeah, I've always called this scripting and echoing. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I would stay away from the GLP kind of thing. It's really, really mentalistic. And it doesn't add anything for us. It just is confusing, right? Because then I have to go look up what that is and translate it back into ABA. We're behavior analysts. So, like, we can use these kind of shorthand things for mental health as long as we really define and like describe exactly what we're talking about when we're talking. Otherwise, you can be at risk. But no, I've had people do things like this. So, like, sometimes it's a function of control where they just like are in charge of light switches before they leave the house and they have to make sure all the lights are off and no one is allowed to touch it. And that kind of satisfies that function or satiates it and acts as an abolishing operation for control functions in other settings, like making people echo your speech. Sometimes it's attention, so getting someone to echo you, you know, they're staring at you and kind of talking to you and you're talking to them and it seems like a conversation. But there's nothing special in that about language. I've had dozens of people with that, either with phrases or with things like light switches. And topography is different, but function and interventions were identical for all of them. It was a good question, though. I'm just going through the most popular posts for the last like month. All right, as a newly minted BCBA, what are some problems you face going out in the field? I made a tip of the week, like a Tuesday tip on this for new BCBAs. For some reason, Facebook, when I publish them, like doesn't show it to everyone in the group. So I'm not sure everyone knew that was available, but let me go find that for you because I could do the same tip over again, but that seems a little bit silly. So I will find it and post it to that question so that you can see the answer I gave you. And I'm sure there's a lot of good answers in there. I did tons of these Tuesday tips. All right, pica, home visits, function, buy-in, pros and cons, signs of damage, boundaries. Let's see, maybe I'll find it another time. I can't seem to see it in the playlist really quick, but that's okay. Pros and cons of being a behavior analyst. I think this was one of the ones I did for a new one. So I'll copy that link. And also, like, when is therapy over? But yeah, I did a bunch of these things. So let me go and answer that in there. I'll put the link in here. So if you're watching it, you can see that like new BCBA, what's good, what's bad video. And in that one, I talk a lot about pros and cons and working for nonprofits more specifically, because a nonprofit setting has different, maybe, or more perils sometimes than a for-profit setting. For-profit, there's perils there of like insurance billing, insurance fraud, caseloads, all of that stuff. Caseloads like for profit, like you have to supervise people, more people than you reasonably can supervise. Nonprofits have a different set of concerns, if you will. And a lot of them are to do with, you know, you're getting paid and it's a job. Like, your clients are not your family. They're not people you know personally. So there's a lot of things that I've seen in nonprofits that are specialized kind of danger that if I was a new BCBA, I would want to know. So for whoever did that comment, I would say check out the pros and cons, but also like tips generally of working in nonprofits, because they're their own beast and there's some key differences between for-profits and nonprofits. Okay, I swear all I do is talk. Alrighty. Audited for RBT hours. I've had an audit done before, like ages ago, for my continuing ed. They just wanted like the certificates and it was fine. I really think it's at random. All right, in-home remote BCBA must-haves. Wow, that was very popular, but like I don't have anything to add to that. Students that elope impulsively. Where are they eloping to? Are they really eloping? Seemingly no antecedent. Well, there always is one. That just means we don't know what it is. Not a consistent time. He would stop at the door, But now he's going out the door and eloping in parking lots through the field. He has no safety awareness, doesn't understand why it's dangerous. He thinks it's funny. Oh, he's playing tag. Okay. He will write a script apology because he's been taught to, but I don't believe he really understands the seriousness of what he's doing. He currently has 2 adults with him at all times for safety, which isn't feasible in our public school. This is year 2 of it happening, and I am at a loss. So it sounds like tag to me. Obviously, I haven't assessed this one client. I don't know exactly what's going on. But I've had so many clients elope from school just to get someone to chase them because there's not a lot happening, or they don't have enough reinforcers of the kind they need. Either where it's big attention, because some kids need like loud, you're yelling and waving your arms around, like it looks like a big deal. Like if a kid's running off campus, it's like a big and very exciting reaction that they're going to get from like the resource officer and the teachers all trying to catch them before they get off the grounds or into the street or anything. So it could be essentially that's how they know to play tag, or they can't get anyone to play tag with them any other kind of way. So I've seen that lots of times. So I would say that could be an elopement. He was stopping at the door, so I'm thinking he wanted to play tag, would stop, and then they'd usually like grab him there, and that was enough interaction. But then they like knew he was stopping at the door, so they weren't chasing him, so then he had to go beyond the door, so that might have shaped up into running farther away. So I've had this happen too. When you have people eloping off campus, you don't want to shape up a behavior of them running farther off the campus accidentally. So yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do for that, but you can like put in contracts. You can contracts are pretty good for it if it's for attention, but like have them run a talent show, or like during circle time they get to present the weather. Like have the place where they ham it up like very like genuinely in front of their peers or teachers, whoever they want attention from, works pretty well. And then also maybe like some extra PE time, or like there might be some like extra calories that kid wants to or needs to burn, or like run off some extra steam. So between those things, I've had pretty good success with people that are eloping off campus, and generally it worked pretty quickly. All right, so let's see. I'll do one more. Recommendations. Oh no, this is the same one. Massachusetts BCBA. Let me see the rest of this. I was licensed in Mass for a long time. I was number 762. I just let it lapse this year because I don't think I'm moving back there anytime soon. All right, I have a new job offer in a center-based setting, but they are requiring 30 billable hours a week. It's been a few years since I was insurance. That's a lot, 30 billables a week. Oh, people are applying their required 30 billables and it's attainable? I don't know how they're doing that. Because, I mean, billable hours to me are hours with the client, hours writing plans, and doesn't include time driving to and from clients. It doesn't include like reading journal articles for background information. It doesn't include time to do things like this, to talk to colleagues, to do research. Maybe I just don't like work as much as you guys, but like I'm shocked by how many people wrote back saying 30 hours is reasonable. That sounds really, really hard for me. I guess it depends on how you're set up. Oh, you know what? If you're at a center, that's what I'm thinking. I've always had jobs where I'm driving from one client to another, or one group home to another. If you're center-based, 30 hours is still a lot, but I could see how that's doable. If you are doing a caseload or driving to school districts and stuff, I would say like, no, 30 hours is not doable at all, because that's usually face-to-face contact or writing plans, or 10 minutes per session for graphing data and entering a progress note. We know that stuff takes longer than that. So yeah, that would kind of scare me, especially if you're in a school district in Massachusetts. The caseloads are wild. Like they will take brand new BCBAs and give them like a very nice salary that's very enticing, and then just kind of drown them in work. And I always feel bad, especially because school district BCBAs are kind of on their own and left to their own devices, because a lot of us are just like out doing our own thing. And, we're the experts when we were board certified, but when we're new, it's nice to have like other people you can bounce ideas off of, or be like, hey, I don't really know what this is. Have you heard of this? So yeah, the school districts give you huge caseloads in Massachusetts. I don't know about other states. I know about Florida is the same. But Yeah, they give you huge districts. They give you huge caseload, and you have to drive between the districts, and it just comes with like all of these ethical problems that are really exhausting to be dealing with all the time, if I'm being honest. And probably more exhausting if you're a new BCBA. If you're seasoned and you're fine on your own and you've been practicing for a long time and you're pretty confident, then I'd say like a school job is really nice, especially if you have kids, because you'll be on the same schedule as them. But I don't think a school based BCBA position is the best for a new certificant, because you're not going to have other BCBAs around to support you or to bounce ideas off of. Although I guess you have this group, but it's not quite as good, as having someone to work with. So that's what I would recommend. If I come up with more ideas on, well, not if, when, because I've been working on this for a year. I'm working on it long enough now to start like kind of talking about it on my burnout analysis, behavior analytically, and the recovery workshop from like. But I'm talking more about like existential burnout and cross domains that are not limited to work. Which usually, if you're talking about like burnout across all domains, that's very similar to what we would tact as like depression, because you lose sensitivity to reinforcement. But there's other behaviors and stuff happening with burnout that's really interesting. So I'm going to keep digging into that. As I make progress, I'll update you. Otherwise, I will see you a week from now for another happy hour on Tuesday. And until then, have a great week. Thank you.